The number one piece of advice that I would give an individual in the area of entrepreneurship or business is be aware of the tyranny of the now. The tyranny of the now. It hurts now. You lost the contract. You lost a staff member. Someone's suing you. Been there. All these. That's the tyranny of the now. You're stuck in the now. And if you can keep your eye on the prize, on the vision, on the aspiration that you have, and that belief and that dream that you had had when you started that company, stay there because the now, it just went by. It's the present, but you have a future and you have a bright future. So believe in yourself, get whatever resources you need to deal with that situation, but don't make decisions because of the tyranny of the now, because you can make emotional decisions that will destroy your business.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I am your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours? Just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Ken Miller. And Ken started his journey going to high school in Anchorage, Alaska. Got it accepted into Harvard, but ended up going to Dartmouth and went into business and focusing on sales. Ended up during a period of time, got into a drinking and drug problem and was in and out of jail for a period of time. And after getting out in '07 and not having a lot of usable skills at that period of time. Decided to go and work at a warehouse and then worked in the food and beverage industry and then a soup kitchen. Afterwards, started a business and then about 4 or 5 years ago, got started into speaking on business and writing a book and started a new venture in the AI virtual assistance business, as well as doing a bit in real estate. So definitely a great journey. Excited to have Ken on. And with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Ken.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Devin. The
Absolutely. So I just gave kind of a very condensed version to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a little bit and share us a little bit about how your journey got started going to high school in Anchorage, Alaska.
Sure. I moved up to Anchorage, Alaska from New York when I was 12 years old, and I was what they would call precocious. I was a nerd. That's really what I was. And I went to high school in Anchorage, Alaska, Bartlett High School. At age 17, I graduated. I was a National Merit Scholar. I was accepted to Harvard, but I did not like cities. So I went to Dartmouth College, got my 4-year degree at Dartmouth College. I majored in fraternity and minored in drinking, and then came out and went into the corporate world, as we would call it. I remember the big thing at that time was IBM. If you could get on with IBM, you've made it. You know, it was the top of the heap. But I did start working for the 3M Corporation. Then I went over to the Kodak Corporation. But within 2 to 3 years, my drinking and drug use caught up with me. And I was to spend the next 20 years being homeless on the streets and also in jail or in the penitentiary. So I've been to the penitentiary 3 times, 3-time ex-con. But the key point is that in 2007, I got out with no marketable skills, no marketable
So
legal skills.
So one just that maybe quick follow-up
Yeah,
question
sure.
on that. So I mean, so went to college. You said, hey,
Mhm.
kind of. I can't remember how you phrased it, but majored and minored in party or sororities or
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
And so I would assume, but putting words in your mouth, but to correct me wrong, that's kind of maybe where the overlay of the some of the drinking and drug problems started, or kind of what was it? Because I live in a realm of attorneys
Hmm.
and there's a lot of self-medication with stress and with everything
Hmm.
else. It's actually one of the high, one of the industries or one of the professions that has the highest degree of alcoholism. So certainly familiar with that. And so that's, there's a lot of self-medication dealing with stress. And so was it kind of more of got started in college, or was it getting into the working world and that's how you coped, or kind of what drove you to that direction that ended up landing you in jail for a period of time?
Sure. I had a half a beer in high school. That's it. Okay. I would never have gotten into Dartmouth or any college probably if I had drank in high school. So I had a half a beer. And then in college, that's what we do as 17, 18-year-olds is that we, quote unquote, we try to have fun. And some of us become alcoholics, some become drug addicts. But I was in a fraternity, and most of my fraternity brothers were exposed to the same alcohol and drugs that I was exposed to, but they did not come out of college a full-blown alcoholic. So I became one, among a few others, but I became one, and that started my journey. So when I got out of college, my graduation present was my first treatment center. I went to my first treatment center, and I remained clean and sober for 2 years. And that's how I got into the corporate world because I was clean and sober. I'm pretty much the same person you see now, except a lot younger. But I could be able to do work and things of that nature at that corporate level. I was corporate sales with Kodak and 3M Corporation. So that's what began it. Then I relapsed, thinking that maybe I wasn't an alcoholic. Now that I smell good, look good, wear my Hickey Freeman suits and my Allen Edmonds wingtip shoes. And at 23 years old, I had everything going for me. And I said, well, I can drink successfully now without pain on the back end. I was incorrect, and it was to take me on a 20-year journey.
Hmm. So now you have that and
Mhm.
relapse within a number of or dealing with different addictions, and that is
Mhm.
always a possibility. So sounds like
Mhm.
start to get traction, get success, and then have that relapse episode, and then in and out of having that issue, and eventually landed yourself in jail. Now, not to dwell on that is the only part of the
Mhm.
journey, because there's
All right.
certainly success afterwards. But kind of how long were you, or kind of over what period of time, or how long were you were in jail or incarcerated?
I was in prison over 5 years, and there was three bits. I did a year, and a 3 year. And the last time I was sentenced, I was threatened with the habitual criminal statute, which was 25 to life on my next felony, because it would have been my
Hmm.
fourth different felony going into. In California, I could have had the three strikes because I had crimes of violence, but I was in the state of Nevada. And anyway, I believed him. I still believe him to this day. And I haven't even done a misdemeanor. I haven't even got a traffic ticket in 20 plus years. And I hope to keep it that way. And I've been clean and sober for 20 years. Could not even be on this podcast if I was not clean and sober.
So no, so makes sense, and so you get clean and sober. So you're coming out of jail, and
Mhm.
coming out of, I don't know, incarceration, jail,
Right.
or whatever, prison. I'm not sure which is the right term, but those are the ones that I'm familiar with. But you're coming out, and you say, okay, had or did go to a good school, had that degree, but on the other hand, now that you have that record, that incarceration record is part of something you have to disclose, or with employers and whatnot. I'm assuming that it kind of limited your ability as to what industries you could work in or what job opportunities you have, but maybe, or that's my assumption, but walk us through that a bit.
Yeah, and that's a correct one. I was limited in a few different areas. One, I'm a three-time convicted felon. Number two, be honest with you, I'm an African American male, three-time convicted felon. Number three, it's 2007. The economy is in very poor shape. Okay, we're
Hmm.
getting to go into our recession or just the beginning of the recession. Of course, I didn't realize that. And so having all that, and then I had no work history. I had no legal work history. So it made it very difficult for individuals to look at me on a piece of paper and say, oh, I want to give this guy a chance as a corporate sales or go into something in management or leadership roles. So at the time, all I could get was part-time warehouse work, part-time
Hmm.
warehouse. And so I did that for a while. And then I was blessed to move back to Anchorage, Alaska from Reno and got into the food and beverage industry in a management position because they have a much more open as to can you do the job? That's what we want to know. Can you do the job? I don't care what your background is. I don't care what you look like. This is Alaska, and it's very difficult to find good people. And I did a very good job there.
No, that makes good sense. So now you move to Alaska, you kind of have the more understanding community, or more
Hmm.
understanding
Hmm.
or opportunities, you get into food and beverage and to do that over or kind of what period of time or how long did you work in management there?
I worked for that about a year and a half, 2 years in the food and beverage. I was a food and beverage supervisor for the convention center. So I dealt with all things to do with liquor, food, servers, bartenders, and I handled that. That was my area of management or leadership because I was management. And that
Hmm.
was very interesting for me. But again, it didn't really use my intellectual capabilities to the extent I would have liked to have done. It still, in a lot of ways, it still was a lot of manual labor, a lot of walking around on those convention floors. I've been there. So, but it was a great opportunity to at least get back into management because I had been in management before, to get back into management and leadership.
Gotcha. So you get into, and now maybe just one more follow-up question, then we'll kind
Sure.
of get to, so as you're doing this, you're getting into it, you're, taking advantage of the opportunities that,
Mhm.
that Anchorage would provide. Now, was the intent always to do your own thing, start your own business, or is that more out of, hey, management in the food and beverage industry is a good position, but not what I want to do long term, and you're, looking for a way to pursue something different, or kind of how did you get into what was there a plan there, or was there more just taking one day at a time, so to speak?
It was one day at a time. There wasn't a plan. So what happened is that I snapped my Achilles tendon playing basketball, too old to be playing basketball. So that laid me up. I couldn't even drive. So I was laid up. When I came back, they were conducive to us parting ways. After like a month, I came back. And I said, okay. So I was out of work. A friend of mine said there's a position as a development director at a food kitchen, which is a fundraiser. I went down there and literally within probably 24 to 48 hours, I knew this is what I love because it's sales. You can call it fundraising, call it development, you can call it advancement, but it was sales. And I've been in sales my whole life, legal and illegal, but I've been in sales. So I took to it like a duck to water. I did very, very well. And then I was approached by the largest foundation in Alaska called the Rasmussen Foundation to become a consultant. They wanted to know if they would support me, would I go out and become a consultant because their belief or their thoughts internally was that I was the best fundraiser in Alaska. That, and I still to this day wonder about that. But I was very, very good at what I did. Very good. And so they want to know if I would work with small and medium-sized nonprofits. And this is interesting because we're talking about entrepreneurship. It took me 6 months to make that decision out of fear.
Hmm.
It was fear-based, fear-based. And I learned a lot of things in that process of going out on my own. And so now I have like 5 businesses. So it's easy to start another one. It's that first one, it's the tough one. It's like the first million.
No, definitely. There is kind of that overcoming that initial fear, hesitation, and a lot of times, people, you work for a startup and it's exciting. You start your own business and people tell you all the reasons why you're going to fail, and most of the time they're not too bashful about it. So there's always kind of overcoming both the naysayers around you as well as a bit of, I'm sure, self-hesitation, but you do that nonetheless. And so, you go out, you start your own business. Now you mentioned you've done a few businesses over the course of time. So maybe walk us through that a bit as to what the businesses were or kind of what you pursued.
Well, they still are. They all exist. So the first business I started was Denali FSP, and it is a fundraising and grant writing firm. So I have employees and we write grants, and I also do coaching for fundraising for nonprofit clients. I've had that since April 1st, 2014, 11 years. Then approximately about 5 years ago, I started speaking from the stage, doing keynotes, plenaries, and workshops. And so that's Ken Miller Speaks. Then there's Becoming Ken Book. That's another company I have that's just for my book, which is being released May 19th. Then I started doing rental properties. So I have rental properties in Ecuador, and those are again a company that's called Casa Arena. And then my last and newest company, very excited about, is Evolution. So I have offshore virtual assistants located in Ecuador and in the Philippines that are trained in artificial intelligence. And I mean, they're trained in artificial. So those are the five different companies, and that's called evolution.com.
No, so you said the earliest company is
Mm,
2014. So,
yes.
11 or 10, 11 years over that course of time,
Mhm.
you've started the various businesses. But,
Mhm.
is that a matter of, hey, I found that something that strikes my fancy or interest and I want to get involved in it, or I see an opportunity, or somebody approached you, or kind of how did you get it? Because some of those businesses are kind of differentiating, or have different focuses. So how did you go back kind of approaching that, or identifying those different business opportunities?
Well, in the first one, I was approached by the foundation, a large foundation in Alaska, and they said if they would support me. And I said, I just need a book of business, called a book of business, or $30,000. And that will keep me stable because I'm losing my income from working at the firm I was with before or the nonprofit. So they started me off and never have looked back. Never have looked back. I've done very, very well with that company. And then the next company is company, Ken Miller Speaks, is I was again approached. Somebody had heard my story and they're like, would you be willing to speak from the stage? We'll give you $2,500. I'm like, where do I sign? Where do I sign for an hour? 45 minutes? Yeah, okay. So that started that company, Incorporate. We go from there. And then the book, I started that last year because I started writing it 3 years ago, but I knew I needed to start a business just from the book section, book start. And then the property, we've had that for about 3 years and started doing that one so that I could take the profits out of that or the surplus. And then Evolution incorporated that one January 2nd out of Delaware. And that one, again, that's one's been interesting because I'm working with international law. I had to get a lawyer in the Philippines to do my paperwork there, let alone things I needed to do here. But again, once you've done the first one, and I'm thinking about another company, but I'm not going to really mention that one right now. But um, yeah, so that's how I
No,
did it.
that sounds like it was a mishmash of different opportunities,
Mhm,
pursuing
mhm.
different interests, and going down that route. So it definitely sounds like a great evolution of things, and presented a presentation of some good opportunities. So now we've kind of caught up. You got the different
Good.
businesses going. You've continued to add on there. But if you're to look out and say, look at the next 6, 12 months, kind of look a bit into the future, is it kind of now expanding and growing the businesses, still looking for, you mentioned a new and upcoming business. So kind of within all of what you have going on, kind of what's the overall direction or approach, or what are you looking to additionally kind of pursue or do in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, the next year is going to be probably the most interesting year in business I'll ever experience. Maybe, I hate to say I'll ever, but it's going to be to this date, the 11, 12 years I've been in business. This is definitely going to be the most interesting. Number one, my book comes out Monday. It's my first book, and that's going to open up. There's a serendipity involved with the publishing of a book. And this is not a self-published, it's through Signature Publishing out of LA. It's going to be a big thing for me. It's also going to open up doors for more speaking occasions. It's also going to open up more opportunities for me to share my message and do what I like to do outside of the revenue producing, which is mentoring young Black men. That's what I love to do. The other thing is the evolution is blowing up. That is the offshore virtual assistants that are trained in AI. And then I'm doing a lot in AI. I'm speaking from the stage about AI, talking about the confluence of offshore congruence of offshore virtual assistants and AI. But I'm just very, very involved in AI. And I'm looking at another AI platform slash company that is going to do a lot of teaching through YouTube. So I'm going to do some content creation. So I'm going to do that. But these next 6 to 12, and I have speaking engagements booked for the rest of this year. Literally, I'm quote unquote running out of space because I can only be so many places and so many times. But I have good staff, I have good virtual assistants, and I have energy, as you maybe can tell. And I have a why. I have a why. So that's also very, very important.
No, that's awesome. Sounds like a lot of good opportunities yet to come in a few different areas. It'll be fun to see
Mhm.
how things evolve. So, well, now as we've kind of caught up to the present day of the journey and even looking a bit into the future as to where things are headed, great time to transition to the two questions I always like to ask towards the end of each episode. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
And I spent some time thinking about this. So I'll start off with the first worst business decision I made, which was very simply to not start, to be in fear about going out on my own, which is belief, really was not having belief in myself, in my capabilities, that I have something that's a value added to the client slash customer. And I went to this is a great story. I went to a investor and I showed him my numbers, showed him my business plan, and he said, I'm not going to invest in you. And I'm like, wow. And I think I started crying because this was like, I thought my last chance. And he said, I'm not because I'd have to take some of your equity, da 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 da. But he said, I want to give you a piece of advice. If you believe in what you have to offer, truly believe in what you have to offer, do it. Just do it. And I left there with a smile on my face. The tears were gone. But I tell you, the worst decision was that, 6 to 9 months that it took me to get started because of non-belief in myself. And so when I have concerns about branching out or doing something new, remember, I haven't lost a business yet. I don't have a business that does not make money, period. Doesn't someone don't make that much, but I don't have one that doesn't bring in revenue that's a profit. Okay, so that's great. So I pay taxes. But the other thing is, I believe in myself and I believe in my vision and I believe in others. And I also have people who mentor me and support me along the way.
No, that's awesome, and definitely, it is that balance of getting to the place where you believe in yourself, you have a track
Mhm.
record, you have a comfort level with the balance of risk versus pursuing new opportunities, and easy area to make a mistake, but also great ones to learn from. So definitely great to hear. Second question now that I'd like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb that you'd recommend?
If you understand finances, we don't have to worry about that one. If you have a coach or mentor or someone that can give you advice who's been there, done that, great. I'm not going to talk about that. The number one piece of advice that I would give an individual in the area of entrepreneurship or business is be aware of the tyranny of the now. The tyranny of the now. It hurts now. You lost the contract. You lost a staff member. Someone's suing you. Been there. All these. That's the tyranny of the now. You're stuck in the now. And if you can keep your eye on the prize, on the vision, on the aspiration that you have, and that belief and that dream that you had had when you started that company, stay there because the now, it just went by. It's the present, but you have a future and you have a bright future. So believe in yourself, get whatever resources you need to deal with that situation, but don't make decisions because of the tyranny of the now, because you can make emotional decisions that will destroy your business. I've seen it done.
It makes good sense, and
Yeah.
definitely a good rule of thumb to operate your business by.
Mhm.
Well, perfect. Well, now as we do get or wrap up towards the end of this episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
You can do a few different ways, but there's one right there. There's one on the website for my speaking, but you can get a hold of me there. LinkedIn, I'm Ken Miller 84. Is a very good one. And then I have one phone number, 907-250. 8488. Anyone can call me. And I pick up. I pick up. I have very little fear in my life, Devin. Very little fear. I've seen some things. I've done some things. I have very little fear from a phone, especially. So,
Nope, makes perfect sense. Definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, Ken, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners are out there. If you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Just go to inventiveunicorn.com. Apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Ken, for coming on the
thank
podcast,
you.
and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.